Miami left us with two sides of the coin. On one hand, Tapia's injury and a defeat that hadn't happened in 323 days. On the other, a victory for CHINGALAN'S, something we haven't seen in 259 days. And I can't ignore Lebron-Stupa's level either. All this and more took place in the first Premier Padel tournament in the US. Hello everyone, I'm Pablo and I welcome you to a new the4Set. Remember, there's still time to join me at the first Premier Padel Major of the season in Doha and train like a pro for 3 days at the best club there, Padelin. For more info, scan the QR code or click the link in the description. See you in Doha! Well, let's start with the worst possible news, Tapia's injury. Do you remember Tapia and Riyadh complaining about pain in his right hand after the final? Well, back then, at least for me, I didn't realize he had any issues until I saw him making gestures at the end of the match. But a month later, this time in Miami, he's feeling that pain in his right hand again. And now it's been much more noticeable, not only because the bandage has grown over the days, but also in Agustin's performance. He alone knows how much it affects him, but looking at his stats, they're the worst I recall for Agus. Talking to some physio friends about Agustin bandage, it's more likely a tendonitis in the wrist or a minor sprain in the fingers. But the problem is, it's in his right hand and he's a professional player. That means he's hitting balls all day long and that kind of repetition is not ideal. Actually, Agus was already injured at the start of the season due to the hexagon court, and in 2023 he also had elbow issues. But obviously he recovered from those injuries and I'm sure he will overcome this one as well, because as Arturo says, he's not lacking effort.
Creo que la parte difícil la ha hecho Agustín, ha trabajado mucho para poder llegar como está aquí a este torneo, ha puesto muchas horas, ha invertido mucho tiempo para cuidarse y es de admirar el hecho de que esté entrando en pista y jugando al nivel que está jugando. La verdad que es algo que admiro un montón.
But the reality is that whether it's the injury or something else, Agus didn't perform normally in Miami and his opponents knew it. Because he touched 57% of the balls in the quarterfinals and 58% in the semis, which is very unusual for him. Because normally the opposite would happen, I mean he would be in the fridge, in the nevera. But not only that, because he had under 50% smash effectiveness in both matches. And to top it off, in both matches he had more errors than winners. So if we look at Padel Intelligence performance graph for the semifinals, Tapia never really stood out. Even though it wasn't a good day for Arturo and Agustin, they still compete until the end and only one break made the difference. But obviously something didn't go well for Agus in this Miami tournament. It could be his right hand injury, although I got this sense he was also moving slower. So it might just have been a bad tournament, but they have another event this week in Chile, leaving almost no recovery time. And if there's a player who knows what it's like to compete without being at 100%, that's Juan Lebron.
Como tú bien has dicho, desconozco lo que tiene Agus en su mano y le deseo lo mejor. Sé que cuando tienes algo de esas cosas, sobre todo te lo digo por mí, ¿verdad? Es muy doloroso, que yo lo sufrí y le deseo lo mejor a Agus, a Arturo y a Prato, de verdad, porque ellos son dos grandísimas personas, dos grandísimos jugadores que se comportan en la pista increíble. Desconozco lo que tenía en la mano y por ahí teníamos esa salida con el globo y bueno, creo que trabajamos muy bien de atrás para adelante. Creo que Franquito también hizo un trabajo extraordinario de atrás para adelante. Y creo que ellos son muy buenos, entonces te hacen siempre estar al límite, ¿no?
Well, Juan admitted that they were aware of Agus' discomfort and that their strategy was based on that. Actually, that is completely legit at the highest level. And on days when Agus is off, usually Arturo can carry the load, but even he admitted that he wasn't at his best.
Siento que no te estoy cubriendo en la volea mucho.
Claro, no, pero que yo tampoco. No, me está costando mucho concentrarme, no te lo imaginas.
Korean Tapia's semifinal loss ended at a streak of 16 consecutive finals, meaning 323 days without losing before the final. Actually, their last defeat before a final was to CHINGALAN'S in the Sevilla P2 semifinals. And this defeat is even tougher considering that in the final their two biggest rivals for the #1 spot face off. Because on the other semi-final we had CHINGALAN'S versus Coquillanguas. And it followed the same pattern as Riyadh, the world's top 4 pairs reaching the semis. That means that along the way Dineno Garrido, Paquito Bergamini or Momo John Sanz all were left behind. And this second semi-final was very tight, decided by a third set tiebreak. And in my opinion, Coqui and Yanguas left a great impression, at least on me, and they could easily have won. Because Coqui's level is outstanding and I sense he now believes he can beat anyone. And at the same time, Yanguas keeps improving every match, though he really struggled defending Chingotto's Vivera. So in my opinion, Fede was the true MVP of those semi-finals, keeping Chingalan alive and helping them reach a final that felt extra sweet after their quarterfinal loss in Riyadh. So that set up the first final between Galan and Lebron since they split. And the last time they faced off in a final as rivals was in 2019 at the World Padel Tour Valladolid. It is true that they have faced each other since then, but Galan with Chingotto have beaten Lebron's pairs 3 times. And this final began in a pretty surprising way, because during warm-up Lebron and Galan had a conversation where Lebron seemed to be asking Ale to calm down so he could warm up his defense too. So they both came up to the net and started sending the ball where the other couldn't reach it. And actually seeing that, Stupa, who was warming up with Fede, started laughing and made a gesture like, look at these two. And well, aside from that funny moment, the final was a spectacular match. It is true that there was a lot of pressure on everyone, but early on Lebron handled it the worst. And as you can see in Padel Intelligence graph, for the first set Lebron had the worst performance, because he made just 1 winner and had 8 unforced errors. He looked rushed, and between him, Stupa and Pozzoni, they managed to bring out the best version of the Lobo in the second set. And it is true that we saw a side of Juan in Miami that we hadn't seen in a long time. Actually, he even explained it himself like this.
Estoy muy, creo, porque nunca se sabe, ¿no? Bien mentalmente, creo que estoy trabajando mucho eso, volviendo, creo que tuve un año complicado. Todo fue, y me lo achaco a mí mismo, todo mi alrededor te lo puede decir, todo fue por mi culpa. Y nada, súper feliz, es verdad que estoy en muy buen momento de mi carrera, no sé si el mejor, no lo sé. Pero he tenido muy buenos momentos con compañeros como Paco, como Ale, así que nada, ahora mismo estoy disfrutando con Franco y también está siendo muy bueno, ojalá que sea así.
So the second set was a second chance for Lebron, much more precise and aggressive. But however, both Chingotto and Galan were outstanding in their respective roles. Because Galan, for example, had a 73% smash effectiveness that is insane, especially on Miami's slow court. So Chingalan didn't allow Stupa and Lebron a single break point, and in the second tiebreak, the match slipped away from them. That means we have 4 different winners in the 4 tournaments so far this season. But besides that, this victory is very special for Chingalan, because it had been 259 days since their last win, the Genoa P2 tournament, where they crushed Agustin Tapia. And remember that they lost in the quarterfinals of Riyadh against Augsburger Cardona, which raised a lot of questions. But their faith in the team was high, and Ale made it clear to Fede.
Agradecer a Ale por confiar en mí en todo momento, creo que sus palabras son siempre, ella confía en vos, dame todo lo que tenés, y yo trato de vaciarme en cada bola. Y nada, es el lema de Chingalán, ¿no? Luchar todas y pasar una más.
Well, for the organizers, the MVP was Fede, but for me and Padel Intelligence, it was Galan, although it's basically a 50-50. But I'm leaning 51-49 for Galan because he adapted to a court that doesn't suit him that well, had such a high smash success rate, and tripled Fede's winner with the same number of errors. And the best news is that this week we have another tournament, but this time in Santiago, Chile. Remember that the men's draw returns to the normal size and we're back to an outdoor event. And watch out to this tournament, because judging by previous years could lead to pair changes, because there are 2 free weeks afterward until the Doha Major. And some pairs like Garrido Dineno or Paquito Bergamini really need a good result, and it won't be easy for anyone. Because in the round of 16 we could see a Cuello Tapia versus Augsburger Cardona plus a Stupa Lebron versus Tolito Gonzalfonso. In the quarterfinals possibly Coquillanguas versus Dineno Garrido, and in the semis the rematch of Cuello Tapia versus Stupa and Lebron. So who do you think will reach the final, and you think will Tapia recover in time? Well, thank you so much for watching the video, don't forget to subscribe and see you in the next one. Ciao!